This week on The Other Side, our first episode for 2025. Happy New Year and Happy Australia Month. Some changes to our channel and formats this year that we'll tell you about shortly. But the big news, Donald Trump is back in the White House and things are moving fast. We're going to bring you up to speed from the other side to what the mainstream Aussie media are telling you. A positive perspective on this incredible change to Western culture and politics that will impact Australia for the better long term. As Australia Day approaches, the usual issues and discussions arise about Australia's national identity. This year, the question of Indigenous recognition taking a back seat to the question of broader race relations in our country. So a special feature in this episode about multiculturalism. This is a discussion that's got to be had, and we'll be having it this year because extremists on the left and right are causing problems, and sensible, normal Aussies just want to live in peace. Tackling the issues that we need to be talking about, this is The Other Side. G'day Sydney, g'day Melbourne, g'day Australia. This is episode 401 of The Other Side for the weekend commencing Friday, January 24, 2025. Happy Australia Day, Happy New Year. I'm Damien Curry. The Other Side is your analysis of the best news and commentary without the woke. And our bias, as we always declare it right up front, is sensible centre-right, what we'd call good old-fashioned everyday common sense Aussie values. We don't expect you to agree with everything we say on this show, and most importantly, we pay our own way with your voluntary support via our website, othersidetv.com.au. Please do get on there and support us if you like what we do. Well, first up, this first episode of the year, some changes we need to announce as we move into our fourth year. Can you believe it? We've taken on your feedback that you want more content from us and you want more in-depth interviews and you want more current topical content on the news of the day, most of all when it happens. We continue to be a partly voluntary show and we're trying to work out ways to keep the quality standard up while delivering you more stuff. So our plan for the first part of this year at least is to do things a little bit differently. The biggest change is that this show, the main show, will now be a fortnightly summary and commentary show, not weekly. So we'll publish a new episode of The Other Side with Damien Curry every second Friday night, not every Friday night. We'll continue to also put this fortnightly show out in segment form across 6 different nights each 2-week period for those of you who like to watch in shorter clip formats. So you'll continue to find this particular show in the main show playlist on our YouTube channel for you to watch anytime you like, and you will continue to find the segments in our segment playlist on our YouTube channel. Now this might sound like we're cutting back on content, but actually it's going to enable us to bring you more content and more current content at other times. So tonight we are announcing the launch of The Other Side Unplugged, a quick and dirty, slightly less pretty and fancy production, but it will come out whenever the news or interviews require, more randomly. They'll have more in-depth interviews, discussion and commentary on the news, and you'll find this new show in a third playlist on our channel called The Other Side Unplugged. The episodes will be numbered and dated for you, but they will come out randomly. Now, so you don't miss any of our content, hop onto YouTube right now, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already. Then you'll be notified whenever we post something new and you won't miss a thing. And if you do feel that this channel brings you about $1 a week of value, please jump on to our website at othersidetv.com.au and support us for less than $5 a month so we can keep bringing you more. That's othersidetv.com.au. Let's go 2025. So the big news of the week, after a torturous 2.5 months of limbo, Donald Trump is finally back in the White House and President of the United States of America. America has really got to do something about the dangerous length of time between when the new president is elected on the first Tuesday of November every 4 years and when they actually get sworn into office in the following January 20. It's not just slow and inefficient, it's actually dangerous. Having effectively 2 presidents in charge at once for 11 weeks is destabilising, both domestically and internationally. Global geopolitics goes through a very messy time where nobody knows quite what the agenda is going to be, and that can actually lead to perverse decisions and actions by foreign leaders and a tantrum of wrecking the joint and deliberately creating chaos by the outgoing administration and president. I like our system in Australia, the UK and Canada better. Once the people have spoken, that is it. Hand over, is virtually immediate. Anyway, that's all done now. The big guy's back in the chair, and the political left have been losing the plot. Apparently, it's undemocratic for them to lose elections. It's undemocratic for the people's will to be implemented by the democratically elected president. It's undemocratic for radical breakthrough quick change to occur, even if that's what the people voted for. Even the Australian newspaper had a headline this week that called Trump the commander in haste. They've been planning all those executive orders for more than a year, folks. Nothing is happening in haste. It's all been well thought out. This is how good management is actually done. Stuff gets done. And it's not just the left in America freaking out. They're also in a tiz here in Australia because they feel that the change that is in the air is really going to affect them. If the left's lies crumble in America, they'll crumble here. Just listen to the leader of Australia's kookiest political party, the Greens, Adam Bandt, tweeting this hysterical nonsense after Trump's inauguration. Donald Trump is a danger to democracy, to peace. He emboldens hate and will make the lives of women, people of colour and queer people harder. He will work to undo hard-fought climate action. Today will be grim for many, but we mustn't lose hope. What jingoistic nonsense. Well, it seems most of Australia has woken up to Adam, the Greens and their screeching silliness. Out of 350,000 views of that tweet, it got only 2,600 likes. As we say in social media land, it got heavily ratioed. 2,600 likes, but 4,700 comments. That demonstrates engagement, but a very negative view of this infantile take. The award for the best response, I think, goes to Stephen, who tweeted this. Adam Bandt is a danger to democracy, to peace. He emboldens hate and will make the lives of all women and men harder with DEI, racism and trans ideology. But we mustn't lose hope. That one got 5,000 likes off only 21,000 views. Well done, Stephen. Look, all of this outrage at the fact that a new president would dare to act quickly, decisively and with authority reflects the arrogance of the bureaucrat class. And when I say bureaucrat class, I mean the public servants who sit in offices, not the ones who do actual meaningful work like teachers, nurses and police officers out on the front line. The bureaucrats, the rule makers and enforcers whose egos are so out of control that they forget that they're there to serve the people of Australia, not rule over us. The middle management, pen pushers and their lackeys. These people are out of control and they haven't yet realised that they don't make the rules anymore. The power is back where it should be, in the hands of the duly elected politicians who represent us, the people. The bureaucrats who love big government just lost. Not just an election, but their entire woke reign of the past 50 or so years is coming to a crashing end now. And they need to suck it up. The people who pay their wages have spoken. And this isn't Trump 2016, this is Trump 2.0. He knows what their tricks are now. He knows how the bureaucrats will try to undermine and corrupt even well-intentioned leaders. And that is why he's moving fast. There was a brilliant video meme doing the rounds before the election where someone had taken clips of the clowns in the mainstream media all saying that Trump would be an existential threat to democracy. Remember that one? And they simply replaced the word democracy using AI technology to the word bureaucracy. It made things much clearer for us all to understand.
The foundations of American bureaucracy under attack.
They want to destroy our bureaucracy.
We are a bureaucracy in danger.
We're watching an election where people are on the ballot openly advocating the end of bureaucracy.
That's what Republicans are doing, attacking bureaucracy, attempting to destroy bureaucracy, and they're doing it with glee.
This is the end of bureaucracy in America.
When will America stop sleepwalking towards the end of bureaucracy?
Right. It's Democrats versus, as Bill Kristol says, the end of bureaucracy.
Ah, yes, it all makes sense, doesn't it, when you change the word democracy and put in the word bureaucracy. Trump is indeed an existential threat to bureaucracy, as he should be, because that's what the people want and voted for. In free liberal democracies, we are sick of your bureaucracy. And this is a bigger problem in Australia than it is in the United States, folks. The bureaucracy in Australia is insanely out of control. 10% of our population, that's nearly 1/5 of our workforce population, are public servants. We've got 2.6 million Australians employed by the government. So they have to be paid for by the taxes of themselves and the people who don't work for the government. Now, most of them are employed by the state government, many of them in productive roles as police, nurses, teachers, doctors, but there are way too many bureaucrats. There's one pen-pushing bureaucrat for every 3 to 4 nurses and teachers working on the front lines in our country. The inefficiency is hideous. And these bureaucrats don't just take money and resources away from the front lines, they actually make the jobs of those frontline teachers and nurses harder by bogging them down with rules and regulations and paperwork and red tape. That is what is coming to an end in America, and you can bet that the left, the bureaucrat class itself, will be screaming from the rooftops about it, and they'll be doing everything they can to block it. And bureaucrats don't only inhabit the public sector, remember, you'll also find them all over the big corporations in the private sector, particularly in HR and legal departments, making life a compliance hell for anyone trying to do business and actually get stuff done efficiently and effectively, and for those in small business trying to compete with the big corporations. And that is why Trump has appointed business leaders like Elon Musk to clean out waste under that new Department of Government Efficiency. And this stuff has simply got to happen here in Australia too, or our liberal democratic nations will lose out to more efficient authoritarian states like China. Dictatorships are bad, but they're more efficient. Now, if all this talk about economic efficiency and weeding out government waste is starting to sound cold and hard and heartless, please remember that the fat and inefficiency comes at a very big human cost. Every bureaucrat time waster that we employ is sucking up a salary and resources that could go to buying a new humidity crib or better cancer treatment or aged care. The centre-right don't dislike inefficiency and like efficiency just for the sake of it. Ultimately, it's about better outcomes. It's about human outcomes that save lives, that lengthen human lifespans, and most importantly, improve the quality of our life that we all share. The other side doesn't get more than $1 billion of taxpayers' money to bring you news from a centre-right perspective like the ABC does to bring you news from a left-wing perspective. In fact, we don't get a red cent from the government. We need voluntary donors and supporters like you to keep going and growing. And we hate asking for charity, so we've done a deal with what we think is the world's best VPN, virtual private network service. It'll keep you and your family truly safe without slowing down your internet speeds, and you can watch Netflix or other streaming services using your regular accounts with them as if you're viewing from any country in the world. And you can sign up for less than $3 a month and get a whopping 83% off the normal price. Just go to piavpn.com/otherside to sign up and get more info. That's piavpn.com/otherside. Well, Donald Trump has wasted no time shaking things up. Judging by his first round of executive orders, he is laser focused on putting America back on track. Now, these aren't just small tweaks. These are big, bold moves designed to put the power back in the hands of everyday Americans. So I want to take a deep dive on a few of them because they will impact Australia and the rest of the world almost as much as our friends in the US. Let's dive into Trump's top 10 executive orders and why they're such a game changer. Firstly, the World Health Organization. Trump has pulled the US out of the UN body again because he doesn't believe it serves America's interests. Indeed, the WHO has proven that it can't remain politically neutral, that it is influenced heavily by China, and Trump wants no part of that.
Withdrawing from
What is this one?
Withdrawing from the World Health Organization, sir.
Ooh, that's a big one. So we paid $500 million to World Health when I was here, and I terminated it. China with 1.4 billion people. We have 350 to pay. We have, nobody knows what we have because so many people came in illegally, but let's say we have 325. They had 1.4 billion. They were paying 39 million, we were paying 500 million. It seemed a little unfair to me. So that wasn't the reason, but I dropped out.
Trump's also listening to Americans who do not want their health policies or any policies dictated by international bodies. They want to protect their sovereignty and national integrity and have their own elected democratic government deciding the rules, thanks. He's also pulling America out of the Paris Climate Agreement for similar reasons. In fact, energy independence is back on the Trump agenda. He's reinstated fossil fuel drilling and scrapped mandates on electric vehicles. He's betting big on American energy to drive jobs and keep costs low.
This next one, sir, is a declaration of a national energy emergency.
So you also
That's a big one. You know what that allows you to do? That means you can do whatever you have to do to get out of that problem. And we do have that kind of an emergency.
In other orders, President Trump's reinstated over 8,000 troops who were dismissed for refusing the COVID vax. These are people who've dedicated their lives to serving their country, and now they're back where they belong. One of Trump's biggest moves is to curb the illegal immigration crisis on the country's southern border, of course, and the related drug trafficking and gang crime problems. The president says that raids by the country's immigration police, the ICE Bureau, in cities around the US will happen.
I don't want to say when, but it's going to happen. Has to happen, or we're not going to have a country left.
This is actually an executive order designating the cartels and other organizations to be foreign terrorist organizations.
That's a big one.
Yes, sir.
People have wanted to do this for years. So they are now designated as terrorist organizations, foreign. And Mexico probably doesn't want that. But we have to do what's right. They're killing our people. They're killing 250, 300,000 American people a year.
Donald Trump's also taken a stand for common sense. He signed an order enforcing a binary definition of gender in federal policies. In a move the Australian Liberal Party could learn a thing or two from, the new US president says it's about protecting women's spaces and women's rights.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
In another move Australia could learn from, Trump's also taken aim at the federal bureaucracy, making it easier to hire and fire federal employees. He says it's about cutting red tape and creating a more efficient government, less waste, more action. And he's bringing back his promise to put American workers first. He's pushing for better trade deals and a revival of the manufacturing sector. For Trump, it's about making things in America for Americans, a throwback to the heart of his 2016 campaign. The lefties are having a fit, but America is a democracy, and this is clearly what the people voted for. It's not like Trump went to the election saying he wasn't going to make big changes. Sorry, but this is a new day, ordered by the majority of Americans sick to death of the noisy minority running the show. This is leadership with a clear vision and the guts to act on it. The only question for us as Australians is this: do our centre-right parties, the Liberal and National parties, have the guts to shut down the lefties in their own ranks and offer Australians the same clear alternative that Americans were offered? I get the feeling that if they do take that approach, they'll romp home.
The Other Side with Damien Coorey is Australia's best independent news commentary show, bringing you up to speed and diving deep on the issues that matter most in around an hour, with a new episode dropping every second Friday. As we enter our 5th year, we're going to be bringing you more content via our YouTube and X channels at Other Side Oz with The Other Side Unplugged. Damien will drop comments on the news whenever something important happens, and in-depth interviews with people who have real insight and value to add. More content when it matters, but only when it matters, so you don't miss a thing. Subscribe now to our YouTube channel at Other Side Oz by clicking the button and the bell below the picture frame. And follow us on X now at Other Side Oz. That's AUS at Other Side Oz. It's free. This is The Other Side.
Now, you just might have noticed that there's been a massive cry of hysterical outrage at Donald Trump's first few days in office from the left. The left is dying. There will be gnashing of teeth and much horror and weeping as their global empire of woke control crumbles, not least of all here in Australia. It's fairly certain that Peter Dutton will be the next Prime Minister of Australia. New polls this week show him pulling further ahead of Albo as preferred PM. There's still a chance that the ultimate horror outcome for our nation, though, a Labor-Green coalition government, is a possibility. That is the only possibility, by the way, if the left win. It will be a Labor-Green coalition and the Greens will have actual government power. The coalition has only a 51-49 lead over Labor when the pollsters work out their magic and think about how all the preferences might fall. But there's as much a shift to the sensible centre-right finally happening among young Australians as anyone else. So that should weaken the chances of such a destructive outcome as the Greens getting their hands on actual government power. Let's hope so. Some relief for one of Australia's most important sectors, small business, could be on the way. Small business in Australia has been under pressure from both big government bureaucrats and big corporates. And it's good to see the Liberal Party getting back to supporting its grassroots a little bit. Under Dutton's plan, small business would again be able to claim tax deductions on food and entertainment expenses for up to $20,000 a year. The business has to be small and have a turnover under $10 million a year. Alcohol will be excluded from the tax break, and the plan will run for 2 years only initially. But what's clever about this policy is that not only will it give small business a bit of a tax break, it'll also help enormously our cafe and restaurant industry, the industry that a lot of small businesses are actually in.
We've gone through different iterations and looked at different options. We actually think it's quite an efficient spend of taxpayers' money. The reckless spending by the Prime Minister obviously has to stop, but we think particularly for cafes, restaurants, clubs and pubs, they're doing it tough. There are 165,000 workers that have left that industry, and we know that 27,000 businesses across the economy, small businesses, have closed. And so what we've proposed here is for small businesses with a turnover of less than $10 million, that's about 2.5 million businesses, or 98% of businesses in the country, they can spend up to $20,000 on employees or on customers to try and grow their business. It's tax deductible for them without the complication of fringe benefits tax. And it's also money that's being spent to help employ and keep staff in restaurants, cafes, pubs and clubs. So there's a multiplier effect there in the economy. And we think that's a really sound approach. And thanks to Angus and the economics team, we've put a lot of work into that policy.
Yep, it's a clever one because of that multiplier effect and the positive impact that it'll have on cafes and pubs and restaurants too. 27,000 small businesses have closed in Australia in the past 2.5 years. This is bloody serious because small business is one of our main employers. Small business also represents the entrepreneurial spirit of Australia. It's where innovation and progress comes from. It's the way people can say stuff you to big government and big corporations and get out there and have a crack at building and doing their own thing. And we've got to support that. It's key to our sense of freedom and self-actualization. Even Karl Marx, the greatest communist idiot of all time, understood and wrote a lot about the alienation that people feel working for big bureaucratic organisations and how that crushes the soul of individuals and nations. So this is bloody important stuff. Dutton also spoke this week about the importance of Australia's relationship with the United States after Australia's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Penny Wong, was one of the first foreign officials to meet in Washington with her new US counterpart, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Some news just in now, and Foreign Minister Penny Wong has met with her new counterpart in Washington, D.C. She is right now in talks with the incoming US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, just hours after he was sworn in this morning.
Channel 9's Today Show on Wednesday. Peter Dutton was asked for his thoughts later that same morning.
Yeah, look, I think our relationship with the United States is incredibly important, and I don't know whether Secretary Rubio raised the comments that Penny Wong's made about Donald Trump over the years, and I don't know the conversation that's going on between the Secretary and Kevin Rudd about his former comments, or indeed, I send my best wishes to the Prime Minister. I hope that he's not scared by Donald Trump's inauguration. It seems to be going pretty well so far. So, again, the Prime Minister and others have had derogatory comments to make over a long period of time. We want to work constructively with the United States because it's the underpinning of our security in this country in a very uncertain century. And it's also a very important people-to-people relationship. We've gone through conflicts standing shoulder to shoulder with the United States over the last 100 years, and that relationship should be enhanced, not damaged, which is why it's quite remarkable that Penny Wong and Anthony Albanese have taken a position opposed to the position of even President Biden in the United Nations in recent months. And I think there is a lot of repair work to do, and it's no wonder that Penny Wong's there, I suspect on bended knee, trying to beg forgiveness for some of the impertinent comments that they've made.
You may have noticed if you've been overseas on holiday recently that you can log into your streaming services like Netflix or Prime in other countries, but the shows they offer are different and sometimes even better. You're paying good money for those subscription services. Why can't you watch? Well, with a virtual private network or VPN, you can log in from home here in Australia with an internet address from anywhere in the world, and big corporations and big government can't see where you are. Now, to be clear, criminals can still be actively found with police warrants, of course, but the average honest citizen will have their location protected from prying eyes of corporate marketers and government bureaucrats. If you sign up now with private internet access, we think they are the best VPN service out there. That's private internet access. As a viewer of The Other Side, you can get 83% off the price of your subscription and get online for less than $3 a month. Check it out right now. Go to piavpn.com/otherside. That's piavpn.com/otherside. It's a great service and a rock bottom price, and you're helping keep The Other Side going and growing. While all the really important things are going on with Trump's economic and social policies, there has to be a sideshow circus on social media with people freaking out about something. I'm not talking about the scary priest. I'm talking about Elon Musk's hand gestures on stage. It wasn't easy finding a clean clip of what Musk was actually saying without some news commentator banging on over the top of it. But here is the raw video for you with sound so you can actually make up your own mind.
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
The Jewish lobby group, the Anti-Defamation League in the United States, had a fantastic response to all of this. For once, they were balanced, sane, and sensible. They said in a tweet, "This is a delicate moment, and many people are on edge. Our politics are inflamed. Social media only adds to the anxiety. It seems that Musk made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm, not a Nazi salute. In this moment, all sides should give one another a bit of grace, and perhaps even the benefit of the doubt, and take a breath. Let's hope for healing and work towards unity." Nice. Well said from the ADL, an organisation that's usually a lot less sensible with its rhetoric. But it brought out the true nature of some of the truly revolting people on the Democrat side of American politics who just love to race bait and stir up division. None more so than that darling of New York's young socialist set, Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC as she's colloquially known. If you had any doubt about how nasty and irresponsible and self-interested and political this woman actually is, this should remove any doubt. Instead of being a stateswoman and leaving this one well alone, she weighed in, actually attacking the Jewish organisation, saying that its tweet didn't condemn Musk enough. She wrote, "Just to be clear, you are defending a Heil Hitler salute that was performed and repeated for emphasis and clarity. People can officially stop listening to you as any sort of reputable source of information now. You work for them. Thank you for making that clear to all. I mean, that is just unbelievable. What a childish, irresponsible thing to say. She doesn't want to miss out on an opportunity to take a cheap shot at a political opponent. That's truly bottom of the barrel stuff and a sign of what kind of politics AOC really represents. Conservative US commentator Charlie Kirk from Turning Point summed it up well in this tweet. This is just ridiculous. Elon Musk says his heart goes out to the patriots in Capital One Arena. So he pounds his chest and he waves at the crowd. CNN, Musk just gave a Nazi salute. These people are so thirsty for controversy and racism that doesn't exist. It's astounding. Yep, it's astounding. Especially when you consider there are lots of reasons to make that hand gesture. I mean, what do you think Hillary Clinton was thinking when she did this? And was Obama giving a big shout out to all his Nazi mates in the audience when he did this? And Kamala Harris was no doubt giving a shout out to all her Nazi supporters when she pulled this one. Yep, clearly they're all Nazis, the lot of them. But my two absolute favourites are this one, none other than Julia Gillard with this fine performance. Such a well outstretched hand there. Very good, Julia. I actually think she's just trying to block the sun. And all the time there was this number one sitting out there and somebody on the internet brilliantly found it. Guess who? Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez herself. There we go. Wave that hand out there, AOC. Oh yeah. Yeah. Feeling a bit foolish now, I reckon, eh? Anyway, all this just goes to show that we see what we want to see, don't we? Be very, very careful of what you believe or what people try to make you believe. I think this cartoon puts it pretty well. There's a guy just hailing a taxi. We've all hailed taxis in our lives, haven't we? If someone was there with a camera, I guess we're all making a Nazi salute. So how can you actually tell if someone is a real neo-Nazi or not? Because they do exist and they are repulsive morons. There's a little gang of them in Melbourne. There always has been. Those of you who are my age will remember the Nazi skinheads of the 1980s. Not the sharpest lot. Romper Stomper, Russell Crowe's breakout flick, is a good movie if you want to understand all that better. But if you want to know what someone is really like, maybe, watch their behaviour and actually listen to them for a while. That's always a good start. So what did Elon Musk actually have to say at that inauguration rally?
This is what victory feels like. Yeah! And this was no ordinary victory. This was a fork in the road of human civilization. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured. Thanks to you. We're going to have safe cities, finally, safe cities. Secure borders, sensible spending, basic stuff. And we're going to take Doge to Mars. I mean, can you imagine how awesome it will be to have American astronauts plant the flag on another planet for the first time? Bam! Bam! Yeah! How inspiring would that be? There's always problems in life. There's this problem, solve that problem. But there need to be things that inspire you. There need to be things that make you glad to wake up in the morning and say, I'm looking forward to the future. And let me tell you, I'm going to work my ass off for you guys. So, I really will. So, and yeah, but I'm super fired up for the future. It's going to be very exciting. as the president said, we're going to have a golden age. It's going to be fantastic. And one of the fundamental things, one of the most American values that I love is optimism. And this feeling like we're gonna make the future good. We're gonna make it good. So thank you again. And yeah, I'm just so excited about the future. Thank you guys. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. He's horrible. He's a real threat to mankind and civilization. He's clearly a neo-Nazi. See, this is what the people on the political left can't stand. They can't stand optimism. They can't stand all that positivity, the vision, the hope, the innovation, the creation of value out of nothing by the human spirit. All of these things are horrifying to those who want to control us, because without a tale of misery, without the lie of oppression and injustice, they can't get control. It's why they hate liberalism so very much. It's why they hate God and religion so very much. They want you mad. They want you divided. They want you full of hate and rage so that you'll vote for them, believing their lie that they can somehow fix everything with all their little rules and regulations. But the left never, ever has fixed anything, because their ideology is just wrong. It's depressing, it's demoralizing, and most of all, it doesn't work. It's been proven. 20th century. Have a look. 100 million people dead under the hands of communism at the hands of their own governments. Focusing on dividing up the pie and obsessing about equity and fairness always makes the pie smaller. Focus on growing the pie and everybody wins. And more people are realizing that basic truth of liberalism every single day. You're watching The Other Side, your fortnightly analysis of the best news and commentary without the woke. We drop a new show every second Friday night. And join us for our new, faster and more casual show, The Other Side Unplugged, which will drop whenever there's a compelling story in the news or a great interview and issue to discuss. So you don't miss a thing. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube by clicking the subscribe button below this video and the little bell, and that way you'll get notified when we post new stuff, and that's free. But more importantly, we really need you to help our mission. So if you can spare $5 or $10 or $20 a month and you want to get behind what we're doing at The Other Side so we can do more of it, please head over to othersidetv.com.au and sign up to the exclusive side and support us for less than $1 a week. We really do need your support. That's othersidetv.com.au. And even if you can't afford to support us financially, you can also sign up for free over there, and we can still keep in touch if the misinformation and e-safety police come after us. othersidetv.com.au, our new website. Check it out. Well, happy Australia Day weekend, everybody, and happy Australia Month. If you're in Brisbane, come on down to Newstead Park and join us Sunday for an afternoon of classic Aussie pub hits and a bit of an Australia Day celebration. That's Newstead Park from midday on Australia Day. Bring a picnic. It's a family day in the park, supported by us and the Good Sauce and the Libertarian Party, Voting Matters and others. We'll celebrate the day and how lucky we are to all share in this great Commonwealth that we enjoy. Australia entering its 125th year as a nation this month. January 1, 1901 was the day that all the colonies decided to become a federation. And it was January 26, 1788, 237 years ago, that the landing of the First Fleet and the raising of the Union flag of Great Britain by Arthur Phillip at Sydney Cove happened. Normally, celebrations are marred a bit on January 26 by left-wing Indigenous protests and objections. But this year, that's taking a back seat to another kind of debate about disunity, as we see serious anti-Semitic attacks in Sydney and Melbourne, and racial and ethnic hatreds rearing their ugly heads on both the far left and the far right. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. I think that's how the song went. Every time the left cry racism at something that isn't actually racism, which they've been doing a lot these past few decades, they dilute the seriousness of racism. It is serious, and racists do live among us, unfortunately. Sad, sick individuals who think that ethnicity and skin colour mean more than a person's character and behaviour. But the left's obsession with insisting that all cultures are morally equal, that immigrants don't need to assimilate or integrate to a core Australian culture, and that our institutions and customs and culture didn't come from anywhere, that they are not in fact Anglo-Celtic or British or Judeo-Christian. These are dangerous and stupid ideas too that will wreck a nation. But they also fan the flames of true racism and hate. And we've seen a bit of a rise in recent years of neo-Nazism and white supremacy in Australia as well. Ridiculous levels of too many, too fast immigration and little or no demand for immigrants to integrate and assimilate is a recipe for disaster for any nation. But most sensible Aussies are not on the far left or the far right, thank God. Most of us sit firmly in the centre, and the majority lean centre right, not left. And we're willing to welcome anyone, regardless of their background and skin colour, provided they put Australia first and they respect Australia's national origins and Australian values. But those origins are Anglo-Celtic, and they do come from Great Britain, and they are Judeo-Christian in origin, whether you're religious or not. That is the ethic behind our legal system and our institutions and the basis of the Federation and the nation. Here's what former Prime Minister John Howard had to say about multiculturalism at the BAAACK conference in London last year.
Multiculturalism is a concept that I've always had a bit of trouble with. I take the view that if people want to emigrate to a country, it's on the basis that they adopt the values and the practices and the standards of that country, and in return they're entitled to have the host citizenry respect their culture without trying to create some kind of federation of tribes and cultures. You get into terrible trouble with that.
To understand where we are now, we need to take a quick look back. In the early 20th century, Australia enforced the White Australia policy, aiming to limit non-European immigration. This began to change post-World War II as Australia sought to boost its population and workforce. The real turning point came in 1973, when the Whitlam Labor government implemented the Universal Migration Policy, moving away from assimilation and embracing cultural diversity. This was the birth of official multiculturalism in Australia. So multiculturalism was introduced in the 1970s. The idea was that people from all over the world could bring their traditions, languages and customs while still being part of a unified Australian society. Sounds good in theory. And some groups have embraced this idea and worked very hard to integrate, learning English, contributing to the economy and getting involved in the community. But not everyone has taken that path. Instead of adapting to the broader culture, some groups have chosen to stay in their own enclaves, keeping their traditions separate and often at odds with the values Australia stands for. And that's not multiculturalism, that's division. In 2011, then British Prime Minister David Cameron declared multiculturalism a failure in his country, as the UK's Channel 4 reported at the time.
Under the doctrine of state multiculturalism, we've encouraged different cultures to live separate lives apart from each other and apart from the mainstream.
The idea that as a nation we should celebrate and promote all cultures as equal evolved in the 70s as the number of immigrants grew. Tony Blair and Gordon Brown had a pop at multiculturalism in their time, talking up Britishness. David Cameron's rejection of it is emphatic. So what and who is the Prime Minister attacking? British society is clearly multiracial. David Cameron apparently arguing we've been too passive, too tolerant of extremism, that we must be more robust in fighting the case for British values.
But back to Australia. You might wonder, is multiculturalism enshrined in Australian law? Interestingly, there's no specific law dedicated solely to protecting it. It's supported through various policies and programs aimed at fostering cultural diversity and social cohesion. In 1989, the Hawke government released the National Agenda for a Multicultural Australia, outlining broad principles and strategies to support multiculturalism. And more recently, the government initiated the Multicultural Framework Review to assess and update multicultural policies. So where do we stand today? Well, Australia is one of the most culturally diverse nations globally, with a significant portion of the population born overseas or having at least one parent born abroad. But I think we lack integration and assimilation. And why is integration so important? Because a cohesive society needs shared values and a sense of belonging. It's not about forcing people to give up their heritage. It's about finding a balance between preserving your roots but being part of something bigger, something more important that you put first above that heritage. Think about the Italians, Greeks and Lebanese who came here before and especially after World War II. They brought their incredible food, their love of family and their work ethic. But they also adapted. They learned English. They got involved in local businesses. They helped shape what it means to be an Australian today. And they gave us Effie.
Hi. Has anyone seen my cousin Jim? Jim's here.
There he is. Hi, Jim. Oh, excuse me. I thought you were somebody else. Have you seen her cousin Jim? Is he here?
Oh, Sophie. Can't you tell? Who else has got psych features like that?
Oh, what do you want, mate? Can't you see I'm busy?
I got to admit, I had a bit of a crush on Effie back in the day. Integration and assimilation works, but on the flip side, when groups isolate themselves, living in enclaves, refusing to learn the language or clinging to customs that clash with Australian laws or values, it creates division. It makes it harder for people to connect, to understand each other and to work together. And that's not a recipe for a strong, united society. Now look, I get why this happens. It's comforting to be around people who share your language and traditions, especially when you're in a new country. I lived as an expat in Hong Kong for 16 years, and it's shameful how little Cantonese I can speak. But English was an official language there. But when people don't mix, they don't learn about each other. They don't build trust or understanding. And over time, this can lead to resentment, to misunderstandings, and even conflict. And worse still, some enclaves bring practices or beliefs that clash with Australian laws and values, whether it's attitudes towards gender, freedom of speech or democracy. These clashes create tension and they make it harder for people to feel like they're part of the same community. The problem with multiculturalism as it's currently practiced in this country is that it puts diversity above unity. Instead of asking how can we all work together, it often focuses on celebrating differences without addressing what we have in common. And without that common ground, it is hard to maintain a cohesive society. We have to get back to admitting and celebrating the fact that our nation is built on ideas that actually came from somewhere. Judeo-Christian ethics, Greek and Roman philosophy and thinking, European ideals of the Enlightenment, all of these things and others filtered through centuries of British Anglo-Celtic history and then down to us in our institutions and our political and legal systems. We have to start honouring that. We have to honour Australia, the nation, instead of just the country. The nation started on January 1, 1901, and it was born out of several British colonial settlements that started on January 26, 1788. Immigrants have brought colour and diversity and flavour to that over the centuries. My Irish and Lebanese ancestors did, and they integrated and they assimilated. And we have to get back to expecting that to happen again too. And finally, we need immigration to bias similar cultures to our own. There's nothing wrong or racist with that. We can have immigrants from all over the world. It can be colourblind, but it can't be totally culture blind. And it cannot be in the massive numbers and at the speed that we have now. Otherwise, there will be terrible division and conflict, as we are seeing across the UK and other parts of Europe at this very moment.
The Other Side is Australia's best completely independent news commentary YouTube channel, bringing you up to speed and diving deep on the issues that matter most. Our fortnightly news catch-up and deep dive show, The Other Side with Damien Cooley, drops every second Friday night. And our new random The Other Side Unplugged content will appear whenever we have high-quality, meaningful content that matters to bring you. To keep producing and growing, we rely on support from ordinary viewers like you who care about the quality of news and commentary in Australia. The best way to support us is by becoming a member of the exclusive side on our website and contributing a small amount each month to the cause. You can do so for less than $5 a month, and we'll drop you an email when we post new content so you never miss a thing. Check out our website at othersidetv.com.au. That's othersidetv.com.au, or scan the QR code on your screen now with your phone camera. This is The Other Side.
I blame a lot of the ethnic tensions and the problems that we're now seeing in Australia partly on the fact that we haven't been able or allowed to have a civil national debate on things like multiculturalism, immigration, integration and assimilation, without being shouted down as evil right-wing racists. Laws limiting free speech that have been shoved through our parliament by leftists in the name of anti-racism have actually gagged a very important national conversation for too long and made the problem a lot worse than it needs to be. And the ABC, our taxpayer-funded national broadcaster, has been appallingly negligent, in my humble opinion, in not letting a conversation happen. Case in point, an episode of the notorious Q&A program from around 4 years ago. Q&A claims to be a space for diverse opinions, but it often feels more like an echo chamber of left-wing ideas. The panelists range in opinion all the way from barking mad radical far-left lunatics up to, well, left-wing. This 2020 episode, which I'm using as an example, was on multiculturalism and Australian identity. And it started well with a very valid and articulate question from a young audience member.
Australia is currently experiencing rapid demographic change as a result of mass immigration. Simultaneously, many of us feel as though Australian culture is being somewhat diluted as multiculturalism is pushed. Why do we insist on promoting multiculturalism when it so clearly hinders us from a unified national identity and culture?
Wow, great question. Smart and well thought out. But don't expect an equally smart and well thought out answer.
It's a great question. I think that multiculturalism doesn't hinder us. I think that we also need to have a conversation about what we mean by multiculturalism. And that's to look at the dynamics of power and control and what diversity actually means. You know, we're seeing a push towards, say, for example, closing the gender pay gap and disparities in gender or other parts of diversity. You know, migrants who are coming to Australia and taking on entry-level positions, then working their way up. But they face often a ceiling. They can only advance so far.
Okay, stop it right there. He's jumped straight into Marxist theory of power and oppression. That is classic Marxism. He then switched a question about culture and gender and workplace, about culture rather, to gender and workplace discrimination. That was Tarang Chawla, a commissioner at the Victorian Multicultural Commission and social sciences academic at Monash University. The next person on the panel was Marley Silver, a young Indigenous TV sports host at Channel 9 and founder of the Indigenous Female Empowerment Network.
Hearing that question, it, to me, relies on a secure, stable and established Australian identity to begin with, and I just don't think we've ever had that. I think there's fragments of identity of what it means to be an Australian that have been derived from the Anzac spirit. You know, if you ask, admittedly, most of the time, if you ask the average white Australian, what it means to be an Australian, they'll talk about mateship and larrikinism and that stuff that comes from World War I, but we have changed so much.
Okay. I actually think if you ask most white Australians what it means to be Australian, they'll point to our nation's British heritage and centuries of evolution of thought and institutions and cultural norms and political and legal systems that have come from all of that. But anyhow, carry on.
And I think that because of the systemic racism that we've been talking about that still exists and the unwelcomeness that migrant communities feel or all these fragments within society as well, we've never been able to talk about what we mean as a collective in the first place.
I didn't follow that. Something about systemic racism and fragments and a collective. I prefer not to get my cultural analysis from 24-year-olds anyway, but go on.
But I think it comes back to, we talk a lot, particularly in the Aboriginal community, about truth-telling and honesty. And I think also not just about making sure that everyone has equality, but equity as well.
Okay, stop right there. More neo-Marxism, equality and equity. The two most unfair words in the English language. No, we want merit-based inequality and hierarchy, okay? Merit-based. That's how you move a society forward. You acknowledge that some people are better at some things than others, and you elevate them to add and bring value to everybody. Okay, so moving on. Maybe the middle-aged bloke on the panel will make more sense. This is Anthony Limo Learman, the comedian and radio and TV host.
Limo, can you see a way forward? Can you see unifying features?
I don't think we're diluting the culture. I think a better way to express it is to say that the identity is, the culture / identity is evolving. And as a multicultural society, I believe the multiculturalism makes us stronger as a country. You think about things that are uniquely Australian. What is unique to this country? And as far as I can tell, I can only think of 3 things that are uniquely Australian. Happy to be corrected online, I'm sure people will.
Welcome to Q&A.
Yeah. But 3 things, as far as I can tell, are uniquely Australian. Our flora and fauna, 1. Indigenous culture, 2. And Aussie rules football, 3. Okay?
Wow. Okay. So this bloke can only think of 3 things that are uniquely Australian. Our Indigenous culture, our flora and fauna, and Aussie rules football. Boy, do we have some work to do in defining what we are as a nation, where our culture and institutions came from, and what it is that actually makes us unique in the world. That was simply atrocious.
It would be nice if our national identity was built around our flora and fauna and our Indigenous culture. And if you look to New Zealand, the Maori culture is at the heart of the Kiwi identity, and wouldn't it be nice if Indigenous culture was at the heart of the Australian identity?
Okay, well, the dual nation that we're seeing develop in New Zealand is actually tearing the country apart, so we don't want any of that. As for Indigenous culture being at the heart of Australian culture, no. Indigenous culture is an important part of Australian culture, sure, but the bulk of our culture comes from our British heritage and institutions and norms that evolved over centuries, built upon Greek and Roman philosophy, the European Enlightenment, Judeo-Christian values and ethics, etc., etc. We're just gonna ignore all of that, are we? All of it, just toss it all out, forget about it's all about that Indigenous culture, footy, flora and fauna. My God. And I love the way he said that, you know, people will attack me online. Unfortunately, you can't attack anyone online on ABC content on YouTube because they never turn on the comments, which I think is an affront and an obscenity when it's the taxpayers who are paying for their content, that they cannot, we as taxpayers cannot comment. So they've got to stop that practice of turning off comments immediately. But that was the diversity, folks, of that ABC panel. Our national broadcaster failing once again to bring us any kind of an in-depth, sensible discussion about this incredibly important topic. Where were the historians on that panel? Where were the conservative thinkers? Why not bring on a community leader from a region where multicultural policies have actually led to tensions? Or a sociologist who could unpack both the positives and the negatives? Why are we listening to a 24-year-old and a comedian? There was discussion about how multiculturalism has enriched Australia, but no mention of the challenges that come with that. No acknowledgement of cultural enclaves, social tension, how some practices might clash with Australian values. No one challenging the dominant narrative. And then there's the audience. Did you notice how every comment that praised multiculturalism got a round of applause? Now that's fine. It's a live audience, people can clap for what they like. But it makes you wonder, was there anyone in that room who didn't agree? Australia deserves better than the ABC. And that's why we exist, to bring you the other side. But what do you think? Pop your thoughts in the comments on YouTube or on X, and let's keep the conversation going, because we don't turn off the comments on the other side. The only way to break out of an echo chamber is to start listening and talking to people outside it. And that's all for this week on The Other Side, your analysis of the best news and commentary without the woke. Our main show is now fortnightly, so we'll catch you again Friday week on February 7. In the meantime, catch our new show, The Other Side Unplugged. Remember to subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss any content. It's free. And most importantly, please remember to tell your friends about the show. Also, do please follow us on X, and we're now back on TikTok too. And watch out for our new shorts on YouTube also. Smash the like, subscribe, and every other button on all the platforms you can. And if you are watching on YouTube and you like what we're doing and you want to support us, jump onto our new website at othersidetv.com.au and sign up to the exclusive side. For less than $5 a month, we'll sign up for free so we can keep in touch. I'm Damien Curry. Bye for now.
The Other Side with Damien Curry is Australia's best independent news commentary show, bringing you up to speed on the issues that matter most every second Friday. In between, don't miss The Other Side Unplugged, as Damien comments on current news and conducts in-depth interviews with the people who matter whenever the need arises. Simply subscribe for free on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button and bell, so you'll be notified whenever we post anything. And to really stay in touch, check out our independent website at othersidetv.com.au. You can sign up for free there too, or join the exclusive side and help support our show for less than $5 a month.